Imagine standing in a river with your fists clenched tightly around a rock. The water pushes harder and harder, your arms grow tired, and eventually you're dragged under. The truth is simple. If you don't let go, life will teach you the hard way. The choice is yours. Release the rock or be carried away by the current. We humans have a strange tendency. We grip tightly onto things that no longer serve us. It might be a past mistake, a broken relationship, a missed opportunity, or even an outdated belief about who we are. On the surface, holding on feels safe. It feels like we're preserving something important, something that once mattered, but in truth, this clinging creates suffering. It's like carrying around a heavy stone in your pocket day after day. At first, you don't notice the weight. Over time, it drags you down, slows your steps, and leaves you exhausted. The stone doesn't change, but the cost of carrying it grows heavier with each passing mile. Think about regret. Almost every person carries regret like a scar on their heart. Maybe you didn't take that opportunity. Maybe you hurt someone you loved. Maybe you stayed silent when you should have spoken up. Regret, when held onto, is like replaying the same painful movie over and over again in your head. It doesn't matter how many times you rewind, the ending never changes, and yet we torture ourselves with the what-ifs. The suffering comes not from the event itself, but from the endless replay in our minds. The past is fixed. The pain remains only because we refuse to set it down. Relationships offer another powerful example. Sometimes we hold on to people not because they are good for us, but because we fear what life will be like without them. Maybe it's a partner who drains your energy, a friend who constantly criticizes, or even a family member whose approval you desperately chase. Letting go feels terrifying, like stepping off a cliff with no safety net. So we grip tighter, but in gripping tighter, we bleed ourselves dry. The longer we hold onto toxic ties, the more they corrode our sense of self, worth, and peace of mind. Ironically, the freedom we seek comes only when we loosen our grip. The workplace shows the same pattern. Many of us cling to jobs we hate, bosses who mistreat us, or careers that suffocate our creativity. Why? Because of fear. The fear of uncertainty, of financial instability, of starting over. And yet, the suffering grows louder every day. We wake up with dread, drag ourselves through the hours, and silence the small voice inside that whispers, "You deserve more." Holding on to work that crushes the soul creates a quiet kind of suffering, the kind that eats away at purpose and leaves us numb. Still, we clutch at the false security, unwilling to let go until burnout or collapse forces us to. Even our identities can become cages. Maybe as a child, someone told you that you weren't good enough, that you weren't smart enough, or that you would never succeed. Those words etched themselves deep into your sense of self. And here you are, years later, still carrying them as though they were truth carved in stone. Every time you hesitate to try something new, every time you talk yourself out of a dream, those old voices rise again. You're not holding on to reality, you're holding on to a story that was never yours to begin with, and that story has become a source of endless suffering. The paradox is that what we cling to often feels comforting in the moment. Familiar pain can feel safer than the unknown, but over time, the grip tightens into chains. We begin to identify with our suffering. We say, "This is just who I am. This is just my life." Yet deep down, something in us knows that this isn't the whole truth. The suffering is not punishment from life. It is a signal. It is the body, the heart, the spirit whispering, "It's time to let go." The moment we recognize that holding on is the very thing creating the pain, we take the first step toward freedom. One of the most undeniable truths about life is that everything changes. The seasons shift, the tides rise and fall, day turns to night and night back to day. Nothing in existence stays the same for long, and yet we humans often resist this truth with all our might. We want permanence, certainty, and guarantees. We want life to stay exactly as it is when we feel safe, happy, or comfortable. But change comes regardless of our wishes. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock politely on the door. Change enters like the wind, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent, and whether we accept it or not, it sweeps us along with it. Look at nature. A tree never tries to cling to its leaves in winter. It lets them fall, trusting that spring will bring new growth. The ocean never tries to freeze itself in place when the tide is high. It knows the water will recede and return again. Yet humans, unlike nature, struggle to embrace this flow. We cling to people, moments, and situations, pretending they will last forever. But just like leaves, jobs, friendships, and even phases of our own identity come and go, change is not the enemy. It is the rhythm of life itself. One of the greatest pains we experience comes from resisting this rhythm. Think about the end of a relationship. Most of us have gone through the heartbreak of losing someone we thought would be in our lives forever. The shock, the denial, the late-night conversations with ourselves, all of it stems from the unwillingness to accept that something once beautiful has changed form. And yet, when we finally accept, when we allow ourselves to see that endings are as natural as beginnings, we discover a surprising peace. It doesn't erase the pain immediately, but it transforms it. The suffering lessens when we stop saying, "This shouldn't have happened," and start asking, "What can I learn, and how can I grow from here?" Change also shows up in the passage of time. Have you ever looked at old photographs and wondered, where did the years go? The face looking back at you may seem like a stranger, a younger version of yourself frozen in time, and for a moment you feel the sting of loss, the loss of youth, of opportunities not taken, of moments that slipped away. But time has always moved forward, and it always will. We can't rewind the clock. We can't relive yesterday. What we can do is honor the present moment while it's here and step into the future with openness. To deny that time changes us is to deny life itself. In work and career, change is often seen as a threat. Industries evolve, technology advances, and the skills that were once prized become obsolete. Some people cling to the old ways, refusing to adapt, and in doing so, they are left behind. Others learn to flow with change, to see it not as a threat, but as an invitation to grow. The world doesn't wait for those who resist. It moves forward, and so must we. Resisting change in this area creates frustration and fear, but embracing it can spark innovation, resilience, and even new opportunities that once seemed impossible. Perhaps the most powerful example of inevitable change is within ourselves. Who you were 5 years ago is not who you are today. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your priorities, they've shifted. Maybe you once craved adventure, but now seek stability. Maybe you once defined success by money, but now define it by peace of mind. This inner evolution is proof that change is not something happening to us. It's something happening within us constantly. To deny that is to remain stuck in outdated versions of ourselves, refusing to grow into who we're meant to become. The reality is, change will happen whether we welcome it or not. We can fight it, cling to the past, and suffer. Or we can lean into it, like a surfer riding a wave instead of trying to stop the ocean. The question is not if change will come. It always will. The real question is, will you resist it and suffer, or embrace it and grow? Many people struggle with the idea of letting go because they believe it means losing. If I release that relationship, I'll be alone. If I walk away from this career, I'll be a failure. If I let go of that dream I once had, it means I wasted years of my life. This mindset is deeply rooted in the belief that to hold on is to win and to let go is to be defeated. But that is an illusion. The truth is far more powerful. Letting go is not losing, it is choosing. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is not the end, it is the beginning of something new. Think about nature again. When a tree sheds its leaves in autumn, it is not losing them. The tree isn't weaker without its leaves. It isn't broken, it is simply making space for new growth. If the tree tried desperately to hold on, clinging to dried leaves through the snow and cold, it would stunt its own renewal. But by letting go, the tree ensures survival and creates the conditions for a vibrant spring. Our lives are no different. What we release may feel like a loss at first, but it creates the fertile ground for new opportunities and new beginnings to take root. Let's take an example from human relationships. Imagine two people who once loved each other deeply, but over time they've grown in different directions. Staying together might feel like holding on to love, but in truth, it's holding on to a memory, not a reality. Letting go of that bond doesn't mean the love never mattered. It doesn't mean failure. It means acknowledging that seasons change, and both people deserve the chance to flourish in new ways. By releasing the relationship, they open themselves to growth, self-discovery, and even the possibility of love again. Letting go, in this case, is not the loss of love, it is the honoring of it. The same applies to dreams and ambitions. Sometimes we carry goals for years that once made sense but no longer align with who we've become. Maybe you dreamed of being in a certain career, achieving a certain status, or reaching a certain lifestyle. But deep inside, the passion has shifted, yet you keep pushing because to stop feels like failure. In reality, letting go of a dream that no longer belongs to you is not losing. It is freeing. It allows you to pursue new paths that match the person you are today, not the person you once were. Some of the most successful and fulfilled people in the world are those who had the courage to say, "That was my old dream. Today, I choose differently." Letting go can also be about releasing emotions. Resentment, anger, bitterness, these can feel like weapons that protect us, reminders of how we were wronged. We think if we let them go, the other person wins. But the only person suffering under the weight of anger is us. Holding on to it is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to hurt. Releasing that anger is not losing. It is reclaiming your peace, your energy, and your power. It's saying, "You no longer control my inner world." Letting go of resentment is not surrender, it is victory. The key to understanding this truth is reframing. We need to stop equating letting go with giving up. Giving up comes from despair, but letting go comes from strength. Giving up is hopelessness, but letting go is clarity. It takes courage to release the familiar and step into uncertainty. It takes wisdom to see that the things we cling to are often the very things holding us back. By letting go, we're not losing. We're creating space for growth, freedom, and new experiences. The most liberating realization is this: every time you let go, you are making room for something greater. Just like emptying a glass makes space for fresh water, releasing what no longer serves, you make space for new opportunities, relationships, and growth. It may hurt in the moment, it may feel like absence at first, but in time you realize it wasn't a loss at all. It was an exchange. You traded something heavy for something light, something outdated for something alive, something limiting for something expansive. So, remember this, letting go is not losing. It's choosing yourself. It's choosing growth. It's choosing to walk forward instead of standing still. It's not the end of your story. It's the start of a new chapter waiting to be written. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the belief that we can control everything around us. We plan, we predict, we prepare, and we convince ourselves that if we work hard enough, think long enough, or try forcefully enough, life will bend to our will. But reality reminds us again and again that this is an illusion. We don't control the future. We don't control other people. We don't control every outcome. The only thing we truly control is how we respond to what happens. Everything else is borrowed, fragile, and subject to change. Think about the weather. You can schedule a perfect outdoor wedding, plan the flowers, arrange the music, and rehearse every step. But if a storm rolls in, all your plans mean nothing. No amount of frustration or anger will change the sky. What you can control, however, is whether you let the rain ruin the day or whether you dance in it. This simple truth applies to nearly every aspect of life. Our obsession with control blinds us to the freedom found in acceptance. Consider relationships. How often do we try to control others, subtly or directly, believing that if they just acted the way we wanted, everything would be fine? We want partners to change, children to obey, colleagues to behave exactly as we expect. But people are not puppets on strings. They have their own minds, their own choices, and their own journeys. The more we try to control them, the more tension, resentment, and conflict we create. True peace comes when we release the illusion of control and replace it with respect and trust. You can influence, yes, you can inspire, but you cannot control, and the sooner you accept that, the lighter your relationships become. Work and career offer the same lesson. You may put in years of effort at a job, imagining a secure path of promotions, recognition, and stability. Then suddenly, the company restructures, the economy shifts, or technology replaces your role. None of it was within your control. If your entire sense of identity and security rests on things you cannot command, you set yourself up for suffering. But if you recognize the truth, that control is an illusion, you start focusing your energy on adaptability, resilience, and creativity. Instead of saying, "Why did this happen to me?" you start asking, "How can I grow through this?" Even health teaches this lesson. We can eat well, exercise, meditate, and take every precaution. But sickness, accidents, and aging are still part of being human. We cannot control the fact that one day all of us will grow old. All of us will die. The attempt to control life's most natural processes only creates fear and denial. But when we let go of the illusion, we start living fully in the present instead of constantly battling the inevitable. We start valuing health as a gift, not a guarantee. Perhaps the clearest example of control's illusion is time itself. No matter how hard we try, we cannot slow it down or speed it up. We cannot hold on to yesterday, and we cannot leap into tomorrow. We can only live in this moment, right now, and yet we waste so much energy trying to cling to the past or force the future into existence. The result is stress, anxiety, and regret. The illusion of control steals our ability to enjoy the only thing we truly have, the present moment. The paradox is this: the less we cling to control, the more freedom we discover. When you stop trying to manipulate every detail, you create space for life to surprise you. When you accept uncertainty, you stop fearing it. When you release control over people, you start appreciating them for who they really are. And when you focus only on what is within your power, your choices, your attitude, your effort, you reclaim a sense of strength that no external circumstance can take away. So, the truth is simple. Control is an illusion. You can't control the storm, but you can control whether you curse it or dance in it. You can't control the clock, but you can control how you spend the hours given to you. You can't control the paths others take, but you can walk your own with integrity and courage. The moment you let go of control, you don't become powerless, you become free. Life has a way of teaching us the lessons we refuse to learn on our own. You can resist, ignore, or deny the truth, but eventually reality has a way of catching up with you. Sometimes it starts as a whisper, a gentle nudge, a small sign, an inner voice saying, "Something needs to change." If you ignore it, the whisper grows into a tap on the shoulder. Ignore that too, and life will eventually shout so loudly that you cannot avoid it anymore. Whether it comes through heartbreak, job loss, burnout, or unexpected crisis, the lesson arrives. The only choice we truly have is whether to learn it the easy way or the hard way. Think about health. How often do people ignore the signals their bodies give them? A little fatigue, a nagging pain, the stress that never goes away. They brush it off, saying, "I'll rest later, I'll deal with it tomorrow." Tomorrow becomes weeks, weeks become years, and then one day the body collapses. The lesson was there all along. Take care of yourself, listen to your body, rest when you need to. If you don't, life will eventually force you to stop, through illness or exhaustion. The body always teaches the lesson, even when the mind refuses to. Relationships tell the same story. Maybe you've been in a friendship or a partnership that has clearly run its course. The joy is gone, replaced by tension, resentment, or indifference. Deep down, you know it's time to let go, but fear keeps you holding on. Life will eventually intervene. A painful argument, a betrayal, or simply the quiet drifting apart forces you to confront what you already knew. The lesson: not all relationships are meant to last forever. If you don't learn to release them gracefully, life will make the break for you, often in a much harsher way. Work and career also demonstrate this truth. Many people stay in jobs they hate because the paycheck feels safer than change. They silence the voice inside that whispers, "You're not fulfilled here." They convince themselves they can endure, but life rarely lets us stay in denial forever. Burnout sets in, opportunities vanish, sometimes entire industries collapse, forcing change upon those who resisted it. The lesson was clear all along. When you ignore your inner calling, life will eventually create circumstances that leave you no choice but to listen. Even emotions follow this pattern. If you don't process grief, anger, or fear, they don't disappear. They build, push them down long enough, and one day they explode in ways you can't control. A small frustration at work turns into rage. A minor disappointment triggers deep sadness. Life is showing you what happens when you ignore the inner work. The lesson is not punishment, it is guidance. It says, face your emotions honestly, or they will face you when you least expect it. One of the most powerful examples of life-forcing lessons comes from failure. No one likes to fail, yet failure is one of life's greatest teachers. You can resist the lesson by blaming others, making excuses, or pretending it didn't happen. But failure will keep returning until you face what it's trying to teach you. Each mistake, each setback is a mirror. It reflects what you need to change, what you need to learn, what you need to release. If you don't listen, life repeats the test until you do. The beauty of this truth is that it shows us life is not against us. Life is not punishing us for holding on too tightly. It is simply teaching, guiding, redirecting us back to balance. The lessons may feel harsh in the moment, but they are always there for our growth. A door closing is not cruelty, it is redirection. A relationship ending is not failure, it is freedom. A setback is not the end, it is a chapter in the curriculum of becoming who you are meant to be. When you understand that life will always teach the lesson anyway, you begin to see resistance differently. Why wait for crisis when you can listen to the whisper? Why wait for collapse when you can take proactive steps now? Why wait for life to force your hand when you can choose to let go willingly? The wisdom lies not in avoiding lessons, but in learning them as early as possible, before life has to raise its voice. Letting go often feels like the hardest thing we'll ever do. The fear of release clings to us like a shadow. We wonder who will be without that person, that job, that dream, or even that pain we've carried for so long. But here's the paradox. The very act of holding on is what keeps us trapped, while the act of release is what sets us free. True liberation is not found in clinging tighter, but in opening our hands and allowing life to move as it will. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks everywhere you go. At first, you might tell yourself the weight makes you stronger, that you need it, that you can't put it down. But with every step, it drags you lower, slows you down, and makes even simple paths feel impossible. Letting go of that weight doesn't make you weaker. It makes you free to move, to breathe, to live. In the same way, when we release burdens like resentment, fear, control, or regret, we rediscover a lightness we may have forgotten was even possible. One of the greatest forms of liberation comes from releasing anger and resentment. Many people believe that holding on to anger gives them power, that it somehow protects them from being hurt again. But in truth, resentment is a prison of our own making. It ties us to the past and to the people who wronged us. When we forgive not to excuse the wrong, but to free ourselves, we experience the liberation of release. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is about unchaining yourself from pain. As one wise saying goes, holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Fear is another chain that keeps us bound. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. These hold us in place, keeping us small. We hesitate, we delay, we avoid risks, all because we can't let go of the illusion of safety. But safety without growth is not living, it's surviving. The moment we release fear, not by eliminating it, but by refusing to let it control us, we step into freedom. Suddenly, new opportunities appear, new paths open, and we realize the cage was never locked. The key to liberation was in our own hands all along. Release also liberates us from the endless need for control. As long as we believe we must manage every detail, predict every outcome, and shape every person around us, we live in constant stress. But the moment we let go of that illusion, we breathe again. We stop fighting life and start flowing with it. Liberation comes when you realize you don't have to control everything to be okay. You only need to control how you respond. That shift alone transforms pressure into peace. Perhaps the most profound liberation comes from releasing the past. So many people are weighed down not by what is happening now, but by what happened years ago. Old mistakes, missed chances, painful memories. They live inside like ghosts. But the past cannot be changed. It can only be learned from. By holding on, we keep reliving the same pain. By letting go, we allow ourselves to step into the present fully. The chains fall off and suddenly life feels new again. The liberation of release is the ability to say, that was then, this is now, and now I am free. What happens when we live this way, when we truly embrace release? Our lives open up. We discover joy in the present moment instead of chasing what's gone. We build relationships rooted in freedom instead of control. We find courage to pursue new dreams without fear of failure. We walk lighter, breathe deeper, and live truer. Liberation through release doesn't just change our external circumstances, it transforms who we are inside. It reminds us that freedom isn't something life gives to us. It's something we create by letting go of what weighs us down. Life is not meant to be a battle of holding on, but a dance of learning when to hold and when to release. The truth is, whether we accept it or resist it, change will always come. Pain will always pass, and new beginnings will always wait on the other side of endings. The choice is simple yet profound. Either we let go by choice, or life will eventually peel our fingers away one by one. So, ask yourself, what are you gripping so tightly right now that no longer serves you? Is it a fear, a resentment, a failure, or maybe even a false sense of control. Because freedom doesn't come from clinging. Freedom comes when we trust that releasing the weight is not losing, but gaining space for something greater. Let go, not tomorrow, not when life forces your hand, but today, because in letting go, you don't lose yourself. You finally find yourself.